there are three types of domains that you can build for basically any website: a branded domain, a partial match domain, and an exact match domain. Now, branded domains usually do not have a keyword in the name of the domain. They're usually super catchy and they're short. Partial match domains have a partial keyword in the domain name, and exact match domains usually have an exact match keyword in the domain. So some example of brand domains are like Nike.com, Coke.com, and even something like your own personal brand, ArmandoSaenz.com. Okay, examples of partial match domains could be something like Nick's Plumbing, AAA Painters, or maybe ArmandosPainting.com. See, part of that keyword is in the domain. And then last but not least, exact match domains, or EMDs, have the full keyword that you're trying to rank for in the domain or as a domain name. Now, branded domains do not have the keyword in the name usually. And I say that usually because there are times where a brand does have part of a keyword in it. So you see this a lot in the local space with local businesses where they're bound by a geography or they're bound by a specific service. Something like, like nicksplumbing.com, is a brand, but it's also a partial match domain. Now, branded domains are usually short. They're usually short and sweet, and oftentimes you really can't tell what the domain is about if it's a true brand, unless you click it. You can't really tell from the name of it. So, for example, ArmandoSaenz.com, you don't really know what that site's about. Now, if you click on it and you start reading that it's about marketing and advertising, now you start to know and get a feeling for what that brand is about. But if you just looked at it, you couldn't tell what that site was about. What I like about these domains is they are the most flexible out of the three. Meaning that if I build a website and I call it ArmandoSaenz.com, I can technically take that website in whatever direction I want it, because the name of the domain is a brand. It doesn't really specify or tie me to really any service or location or really anything else, right? It could be about painting. It could be about plumbing. It could be about search engine optimization. It could be about, selling books. It could be anything, right? Brand domains are usually much safer too when it comes to SEO. There's a lot more wiggle room with a branded domain to sort of mess things up or get things not just right. You could still learn and mess some things up and still be able to not get penalized or even be able to rank. You can build a real brand, a real business around a branded domain when they're done right. And most of the time, these type of domains for consumers convey a message of trust, convey a feeling of trust. Okay, what I don't like about these is that in some cases, they can take a little bit longer to rank. And the reason for that is because some SERPs are typically just dominated by EMDs or PMDs. Not always, right? But in some cases. Now, partial match domains like Nick's Plumbing or AAAPainters.com, they usually have the keyword in the domain name. It doesn't necessarily have to be the service. Sometimes it's a geography. Sometimes it's something like HoustonGrill.com, right? Where the geography is in the actual domain name. But these domains can also be seen as a brand. For example, Nick's Plumbing. Nick could have a site about plumbing because he's a plumber. So it's common to see in local businesses where the first name or the name of the person is used as their business. You see this with physicians a lot. You'll see Dr. James Smith, DDS, and that's the name of his practice, right? Or Nick's Plumbing, for example, that's the name of his business. So in this case, partial matches can also be branded domains. What I like about partial match domains is that they're flexible. Not as flexible as brands, but still more flexible. Here's what I mean. Nick's Plumbing, for example, you can take Nick's Plumbing and you can add any sort of city that you want to that. Nick's Plumbing can exist in every city in the US, but Nick's Plumbing can only be about plumbing. It can't be about painting. It can't be about drywall repair. It can't be about cars or selling books because the name of the domain binds that company. So they're not as flexible as a brand. They're still somewhat flexible. They can give you the edge, of course, give you a little bit of an edge because the keyword is actually in the domain, which is a strong relevancy signal. So we like those things, right? And you can also build a real brand around them when done right. So for example, armandospainting.com, that could be my brand. It could be the name of my company, and I can build this around that, that name. What we don't like about these is that in some cases, sometimes the names can be really long. Domain names can be long. And they're easier to over-optimize than, let's say, a branded domain. Now, the EMD is an exact match domain. This is a domain that has the exact match keyword or keyword phrase as the name of the domain. Things HoustonHomePainters.com or DentistNearMe.com. Now, the pros to having an EMD are that, and some people will argue this, but the pros of having an EMD are that it can give you a little bit of an edge when done right. Obviously, if you pick something like buy my red shoes in Houston for under $100.com, that's going to flop. That screams spam. So the reason a lot of EMDs fail for people is because they're using them wrong. But EMDs have never stopped working. They have worked for ages. They always have been, and they always will be. Because EMDs have the exact keyword in the domain, which gives you a little bit of an edge as well. What we don't like about these is that these are the least flexible domain types. So Houston Home Painters, it can only be about Houston Home Painters. It can't be about anything else. It can't even be in a different city because the domain name really binds you. So they're the least flexible. They're also the easiest to over-optimize. So if you're just getting started with SEO, even if you're an advanced SEO, sometimes you can over-optimize an EMD really easily. Okay? They're usually longer domain names. So they're really long. And they're possibly the least trusted in the eyes of the consumer. If you see something like HoustonHomePainters.com versus like NixPainting.com, Nix Painting has a little bit more of a trust factor to it. Now, how do we choose the right domain type? Well, the answer to this is it really depends. Like I mentioned before, if you're just getting started and you're brand new to SEO, you're brand new to building websites, stick with a branded domain because it's easier to not get penalized. It's easier to make some minor mistakes and still have a decent ranking with a domain, right? But sometimes the industry itself will dictate the type of domain that you need to go with. So in a lot of local businesses, when you're Googling certain services, you'll notice there's a lot of partial match domains in some areas that show up. And the reason for that is because a lot of businesses do use part of that keyword or their name and their service as their business name. Okay? And then you have exact match domains and you use those, sparingly, or if you know what you're doing. For me, I use all three of these and I use them in different situations. If I'm building a big site, a national site that I want a lot of flexibility, I want to go into different cities and different verticals, I would go with a branded domain name because that doesn't bind me to anything. Now, if I am looking for something local, maybe I have a lot of services that I want to rank, but a specific industry. For example, let's say plumbing. I'd go with something like, ArmandosPlumbing.com, but then I'd have water heaters and everything else that goes underneath that. I'd go with a partial match domain. And I'd go with an EMD when I'd have a keyword that has a bunch of search volume that I know I can beat out, and I go with that specific exact match domain. So it really depends. And as we get into this course a little bit more, you'll get to see this live and in action, and you'll get to have that aha moment, and you'll start to realize, which one is going to be the best one for you.